Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, July 29th, 2023. And our top story today, today's stock market looks more like it did in 1995 before the bubble popped in 99. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is Joya Dass. She is the founder and CEO of the Women's Leadership Lab. Joya, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Happy Friday. We're all trying to stay cool during this heat wave.
I know. And here down in the South, it is exceptionally warm. I know it is up in New York.
I can't imagine.
I mean, what can you do? All you can do is try to stay inside and keep yourself cool. But, you know, something that's not cool or heating up, the stock market continues to heat up. I want to start with the Federal Reserve raised interest rates by a quarter point. Reaction to the market. How did the market react?
So the expectation is that we were going to see at least 2 more rate hikes this year. So this was as promised. The Fed is hyper-focused on inflation and making sure that we put the brakes in any way, shape, or form for that being a runaway train. And so the rate was as expected. I think what was more interesting was the language that they used, because there's some tweaks that have happened there. One is that they used to describe the economy or economic growth as modest. They've now moved to moderate. So in other words, recession, what recession? Inflation is still elevated in their opinion. They're looking for 2%. We're not near there yet. And that job gains are robust. So it's a little bit schizophrenic, right? We keep talking about folks who are cutting costs, cutting jobs, but on the other hand, people are spending. The consumer spending numbers came out and spending is up 1.6%. And guess what people are spending it on? Travel.
I know, it is unbelievable. And by the way, they're subject to a lot of travel delays. And I know there have been the travel organizations are working hard to kind of remedy that, still working that through. I was reading an article recently that said that today's stock market and today's environment is very reminiscent of the what before the dot-com bubble burst. And we've seen, you know, Chat GPT several months ago. Now we're talking about artificial intelligence. From your perspective as a financial journalist veteran, does it feel reminiscent of 1995 rather than 1999 when the bubble burst?
So I would say there's one swing factor here, which is that even though some of the dynamics may be the same, we're still seeing companies post profits. So take a look at Microsoft, for example. So their AI initiatives aren't being realized as fast as the market would like. It's probably not going to be till next year. That impacted their 2024 guidance, so Microsoft stock's been down. But take a look at Google, take a look at Meta. They are still firing on all pistons, especially with some of their AI initiatives, and their ad spending is back up. So even if they're cutting costs, they're managing them and still posting a profit.
Yeah, and I mean that is true. And you know, those profits so different than what we experienced during the dot-com bubble. Joy, I can't let you leave the program without asking about the Women's Leadership Lab. Let's talk a little bit about that. How are you helping women? You're providing leadership, you're giving them some coaching, but tell us about the lab and how our audience can get involved.
So I've had this business actually for 10 years. And while I've been on the air for 20 years, I've been running this business for 10 of it. And obviously public speaking is in my wheelhouse. It's something that I do every day. And I have a lot of women who come to me because they want to be more elegant in being able to tell their story. And it's so important if you're a founder, so important if you are the founder of a company or CEO. So I'm really working with a lot of C-level people to be able to tell their story and tell it elegantly and connect it to their bigger why. The other piece that most people see when they look at my social media is that I drive a lot of my leadership programming through an element of adventure. So we're about to head on a sail to Turkey in about 20 days. All my women leaders get to be on a private charter on the coast of Turkey in, let's see, we leave August 12th.
Yeah, and if someone is watching and they want to get involved and they want to kind of tap in, because I would imagine there are a lot of women leaders that may have an interest in really helping cultivate their messaging and present, bring presentation to a higher level. How do they do that?
Sure, you can always reach out to me at joyadass.com. My website is the same thing, Joya Dass, and I'm the same across all my socials, joyadass.com.
Yeah, that consistency certainly helps. Joya, thanks for stopping by the program, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Yeah. Take care. Have a great weekend. Stay cool.
Thanks, Joya. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. This week we had great topics and, of course, great guests. We kick off the week with a look at helping veterans find care in the community. Let's take a look.
So the first step is to enroll in VA healthcare. So today, VA serves about 9 million enrolled veterans, but there's other veterans out there that haven't taken the step to get enrolled. In fact, right now is a great time to take that step because just last year, Congress passed the PACT Act, which expands eligibility even further for many veterans, essentially any veteran that's been exposed to any kind of toxic exposure while they were deployed or on active duty. And we've got a deadline coming up in early August to enroll or submit an intent to enroll. So it's a great time for veterans who haven't previously gotten care through VA to take that step and enroll. And all the information is right on our website at va.gov. So once you're enrolled, it's as simple as calling your local VA medical center and making an appointment. You can do that online once you've taken the steps to get access to all the apps. We do have the ability for veterans to be able to schedule an appointment right through an app, as you mentioned, you've seen, or you can do it on the phone as well. And so the first step is really going to be getting an appointment with your primary care provider. So they'll assign you one, or you'll be able to pick one at your medical center. And from there, they'll be able to refer you to specialists to be able to get glasses through the VA, for example, or vaccines. So we started this conversation talking about VA is the largest integrated delivery system in the world. And we've got a presence around the country with 1,300 healthcare facilities. And that includes clinics, that includes 171 medical centers, but there's some areas where we don't have a presence and we're not as close to home for the veteran. And so that's where community care comes in. We have a network of about 1.3 million providers in every state and territory across the country. And through that network, which really serves as extenders to be able to provide that care closer to home, or that's more convenient, or just with a provider of the veteran's choice if they're eligible for it. So as I mentioned, step one is getting enrolled, being able to get an appointment with a primary care provider at the VA. And from there, if you're determined to be eligible to get care through the community, you can then go see a provider through that network of 1.3 million providers. So it really is a really neat benefit. And while VA has been doing this for the last 20 plus years, for veterans, we had through the Mission Act that was passed in 2019, a pretty significant expansion in eligibility for community care. So that's why we're seeing more veterans are able to access that benefit than ever before.
And we also discussed the serious health consequences around osteoporosis. Let's take a look.
Osteoporosis is a metabolic bone disease, okay? So, and what it happens is people's bones, which are living tissue, people don't think of bone as being living tissue. That's what I find to be interesting talking to a lot of my patients, is that it is really an organ in the body. And what happens is there's a metabolic disease that makes it very porous, holey, and frail. And it leads one for being susceptible for a fracture. And it's, extremely important, common. And the problem is that it's not like a sexy disease. It's not like people who think about heart disease and strokes and, breast cancer or cancer. But it is actually, there's more fractures from osteoporosis worldwide than heart attacks and strokes and cancer, and people just don't pay enough attention to it. It affects women more than men because it has something to do with hormones. But one thing I say to people is the two biggest risk factors for osteoporosis is age. Age is an independent risk factor. As we age, your risk of fracture and developing this disorder increases, and genetics is another big one, which we can't modify. That's your genes. But there are many other modifiable risk factors. It is more common in women than men because of the fact that there is a definite interplay between hormones, estrogen specifically. And as women go through menopause, we've learned that even prior to that woman's final period where hormones start declining, women start losing bone mass. For men, they tend to develop this risk a little bit later. And that's why when you look at the screening guidelines, it is a bit later than for men than for women. And there's no question that it's more common in women than men, but it does exist in men as well. Years and years ago, the only way people were diagnosed is if they fell and they fractured. Well, we now have a tool called a bone density. Some people, a DEXA machine, where the convention is to measure your spine and your hip. And in certain conditions, we do the forearm. And we now can predict who is at risk for fracture based on that bone density. We define osteoporosis in multiple ways, which a lot of people are not aware of. One definition for sure is a certain measurement on the bone density that gives you osteoporosis, whether you've had a fracture or not. But a lot of people do not realize that if you, over the age of 45 or 50, you trip and fall, even from standing height, it's called a fragility fracture. The streets that you live on, you fall and break your wrist, break your ankle, break your hip, break your pelvis. Even with a bone density that may not be in the category of osteoporosis by definition, that is called a clinical fracture. And I think this is a big message to get out there to the public, men and women, because people come in all the time. Someone comes in my office, 70, 75-year-old woman, look, my bone density, it doesn't look that bad. It's not in the osteoporosis range. It's in the what we call osteopenia or low bone mass range. But she just fell and fractured her pelvis. That is a definition of osteoporosis. And she needs to pay attention to that, be evaluated and be treated, because she is at risk for future fractures, especially in that first year of having had a fracture. All women over the age of 65, every guideline, Medicare will say should have a bone density test to decide, to assess whether you have low bone mass, which is called osteopenia, but with other risk factors that may make you into a high risk factor where we say you really have maybe clinical osteoporosis as well, or you do have osteoporosis, so over 65 for women and over 70 for men, plus younger men and women if they have other risk factors. So a woman comes in at 55 and she just tripped and fell and broke her humerus. her arm or her leg, she should have an evaluation and a bone density because she may have osteoporosis. It's not like it doesn't exist in younger women and men. So for instance, someone else on a high-risk medication, there are a list of medications like steroids and many medications we use for cancer treatments that make people at risk. So those people should have a bone density prior to the age of 65 or 70.
Well, I want to thank all of our great guests this week and want to thank you, our audience. And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, hey, it's everything. And it's all in one place. Check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're backing in tomorrow for BRN Sunday. We'll have the Legal Eagles, and we'll also be checking in with Oliver Rennick from the TD Ameritrade Network. We're going to be breaking it all down for you. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.